I titled the playlist where I'm recording these individual recordings. I titled it Journey of a Thousand Selves. And, the whole idea that I had for this, and also it's the whole idea I've had for a long time, is how important it is to, rather than, being like, at some advanced stage of perfection on the spiritual path, to actually share the reality of, the selves that we deal with. So, and often I've noticed, when Kim's talking about, when he's transcended certain illusions in the past, and he says, gee, I wish I could remember what went on in my mind. I wish I could remember like how the process happened, because he's moved so far beyond it. And so, I'm just going to put myself out there and share my process, and I'm going to share it like, it's live in action. It's happening right here, right now. So the self that has been building to be observed over the past, it's been sort of really amplifying over the past few weeks. On the physical level, so it's obviously something that's been going on for a while, because finally on the physical level, like a whole bunch of shit has just been exploding through my body. Like, I've succumbed to a major infection. I'm sort of pretty much beyond the infection now, but still my hearing's not right. I still have a blocked ear and everything. So my body has taken on, it's been outplaying that, man, there's a problem here. And I was using everything else as a reason, blaming the outer for why I was, dealing with this infection. Because, I'm there and I'm invoking light, I'm doing the tuning fork, and every cell is now attuned to Mother's Bell mantra, and, feeling like, this should work, I'm a spiritual person, it's worked before, it's going to work again. And then when it got me, and it just knocked me, for six, it was massive. And, I went into like a depression. And when I went into the depression, and I'm only just emerging from it now, but when I went into the depression, I blamed the antibiotics, because, I read that it says that, antibiotics can cause and exacerbate depression and anxiety. And I have no doubt that they do. But I wasn't taking responsibility for myself. Until, a wise friend was just able to sort of step back and say, what do you think about, all the things that have been happening, all these frustrations, all of these physical things that have been happening over the past few weeks? Because, she was listening to me talking about things over time, and just saying, maybe just have a look at all of that. And that's what we need to do, when we go through discomfort, we need to, not sort of use the spiritual teachings as I was, to just dismiss it and push it away and into a place where you don't have to look at it anymore. So, I looked at it very honestly, and I could see that I'd been feeling a growing frustration with the interview process, because everything was just coming to a crashing halt. I have, believe it or not, I've got about, there's a lot of people, there's possibly 10 different people awaiting interviews, but each one is going through, whatever they're going through, their own process. Either they're busy, don't have the time, they're going through some sort of a outer life is coming to them, and making them focus on their outer life, and other times they're working on their own personal inner process. And this self in me was feeling frustrated because it has an agenda, and it wasn't being fulfilled because and I sense, sometimes with some people, they're sensing this too. They're sensing that there's something imbalanced in me, something that's pushing for things to happen, and seeing. And in me, I was feeling frustration because I thought, man, the interviews don't happen like magic. Like, it requires an effort from me. And of course, it requires, the other person to be ready to participate. And so, I just sort of hit this point as I got sick, and I was just like, oh, fuck it, I had to surrender to the flow and realise, like, it'll all happen when it happens, that's my higher self understood that when the flow happens, and clearly the flow is, it's come to a stop. So just let the interviews be. It'll just work itself out when it works itself out. But in the meantime, I've got to stop and just, and I didn't feel like making any more effort either. So, I've got to honour that too. Just stop that and go with, whatever that flow is, which, it's taken me to here, to looking at this self. It's a self that has an agenda. It's a self that it has an agenda to help people. It's almost like it's been overlaying my divine plan. And because it wants something, it wants change to happen. It needs for somebody else to change in order for it to feel good, but it's never going to feel good. Even if somebody listens to, whatever guidance or advice I give them, this self is never going to feel good about it. Like, it's just going to keep doing what it does constantly, like, because it's a program. So it's never going to feel the relief that I feel like I'm going to get, when, let's say, it wouldn't matter if I conducted, 1,000 interviews and they were all seen worldwide, like, this self still wouldn't be satisfied. Because it can't, it can't feel joy. It can't, and it was taking away from my own joy of service, which is just to flow and be and just allow it to come, whatever it is to come through in the moment. It was overlaying my divine plan and my ability to serve others. So I saw it playing out on an individual level. Like, I was staying with a friend, and I noticed how she's going through some personal problems and everything, and I was trying to help, but this self was totally, it had an agenda. It was offering suggestions, and when clearly she just wasn't ready for that or anything, or doesn't want it, and fuck, it's her own process anyway. I hit a level of, my own sort of level of frustration, which is the self. That's its reaction, feeling frustrated that, the other person's not taking on board the guidance given. And it was causing, a friction in our relationship, because she's feeling that pressure from me too. Like, it's not cool to be putting that on someone else. And people have absolutely, they have their absolute own God-given right to work through things as they work through things. And if that, it's not my place to try and change that. It's not your place to try and change me or anybody else. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess, I'm just at this point of just, I'm accepting that, I've been out playing this illusion, and, there's an element of pride, fear of making a mistake, with admitting that, I've had a tendency to push my agenda onto somebody else, onto whoever it might be. But I can see that in order to be of service, true service, it's only ever going to get in the way. The Christ can't express through me when there's this overlay playing. So, and only the Christ knows what is going to help another person. So I guess a good litmus is kind of like, a good litmus test is when, we feel like, okay, I feel like I want to say something, and, I just treat it like an experiment and see what the reaction is that comes back, and to see how you or I react to that. And, and I've been noticing, I've been feeling a lot of frustration, a lot of disturbance in a lot of my interactions lately. And it's this self. So, in summary, it's a self-focused self. It's an achievement-driven self. And it is never, ever, ever going to have its desires fulfilled. So, self-exposed, done, tick. Talked about, tick. You can do with it whatever you want, tick. And I'll close it with some love. See ya.